Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Valabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Valabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Rukmini Dwarkadish Rukmini Dwarkadish Rukmini Dwarkadish Rukmini Dwarkadish Jaya Jagannath Jaya Jagannath Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra Jaya Gauranitai 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 Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Srila Prabhupada Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol, Jayom Vishnupad, Paramahansa Padaprajak, Acharya Saraswati Sri Sriman, ISKCON BBT founder, Acharya Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Nitya Lila Pravisha, Om Vishnupad Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai, Nam Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Sakahosh Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shadaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivedanta Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopana Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Shri Bajamurmanam ki jai, Shri Nabadip Mayapurdam ki jai, Shri Nalachal Jagannath Puridam ki jai, Ganga Mai ki jai, Jamuna Mai ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Shrimati Tulsi Maharani ki jai. Their most beautiful lordships, Shri Sukmini Dwarkadish ki jai, Shri Sukmini Dwarkanath ki jai, Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra ki jai, Shri Shri Gaurnitai ki jai, Samabeta Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Going back to home, back to Godhead ki jai, ISKCON Los Angeles Yatra ki jai, Brihad Madanga Transcendental Book Distribution ki jai, International Food for Life Transcendental Prasadam Distribution ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the seven devotees, all glories to the seven devotees, all glories to the seven devotees, all glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga, glory Srila Prabhupada. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Deving Saraswatim Vyasam Yato Jayam Hatirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, let us offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of God and Lord Narayana, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremmost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, who is the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta Prayeshu Badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavat Yuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. By regularly attending the Srimad Bhagavatam class and by rendering service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving devotional service unto the personality of God, at whose worship which transcendental songs becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're continuing our reading from the third canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is chapter 22, and today's text should be 36. Sa evang santarang ninye yuganam ekasaptatim vasudeva prasangena paribhuta gatitrayaha. Sa evang swantarang ninye yuganam ekasaptatim vasudeva prasangena paribhuta gatitrayaha. Sa evang swantarang ninye yuganam ekasaptatim Vasudeva prasangena paribhuta gatitrayaha. Please chant. Yuganam Ekasaptatim Vasudeva Prasangena. Vaishnavis Sa evang swantarang ninye Yuganam Ekasaptatim Vasudeva Prasangena Paribhuta Gati Chayaha Evam Swantaram Ninye Yuganam Ekasaptatim Vasudeva Prasangena Paribhuta Gati Chayaha. So, synonyms. Saha, he, Swayambhuva Manu. Evam, thus. Sa antaram, his own period. Ninye, past. Yuganam, of the cycles of 4 ages. Ekasaptatim, 71. Vasudeva, with Vasudeva. Prasangena, by topics connected. Paribhuta, transcended. Gati Trayaha, the 3 destinations. Srila Prabhupada's translation for this verse. He passed his time, which lasted 71 cycles of the 4 ages. That's 71 times 4,320,000 years. Always thinking of Vasudeva and always engaged in matters regarding Vasudeva. Thus he transcended the 3 destinations. Please repeat. He passed his time, which lasted 71 cycles of the 4 ages, which is 71 times 4,320,000 years. Always thinking of Vasudeva and always engaged in matters regarding Vasudeva. Thus he transcended the 3 destinations. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The 3 destinations are meant for persons who are under the control of the 3 modes of material nature. These destinations are sometimes described as the awakened, dreaming, and unconscious stages. In Bhagavad Gita, the 3 destinations are described as the destinations of persons in the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. It is stated in the Gita that those who are in the mode of goodness are promoted to better living conditions in higher planets, and those who are in the mode of passion remain within this material world on the earth or on heavenly planets. But those who are in the mode of ignorance are degraded to an animal life on planets where life is lower than human. But one who is Krishna conscious is above these 3 modes of material nature. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita that anyone who engages in devotional service to the Lord automatically becomes transcendental to the 3 destinations of material nature and is situated in the Brahmabhuta or self-realized stage. Although Swayambhuva Manu, the ruler of this material world, appeared to be absorbed in material happiness, he was neither in the mode of goodness nor in the modes of passion or ignorance, but in the transcendental stage. Therefore, one who fully engages in devotional service is always liberated. Bilvamangala Thakur, a great devotee of the Lord, stated, quote, "If I have unflinching devotion to the lotus feet of Krishna, then Mother Liberation is always engaged in my service. The complete perfection of material enjoyment, religion, and economic development is at my command." End of quote. People are after dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. Generally, they perform religious activities to achieve some material gain, and they engage in material activity for sense gratification. After being frustrated in material sense gratification, one wants to be liberated and become one with the absolute truth. These 4 principles form the transcendental path for the less intelligent. Those who are actually intelligent engage in Krishna consciousness, not caring for these 4 principles of the transcendental method. they at once elevate themselves to the transcendental platform which is above liberation. Liberation is not a very great achievement for a devotee, to say nothing of the results of ritualistic performances in religion, economic development, or the materialistic life of sense gratification. Devotees do not care for these. They are situated always on the transcendental platform of the Brahmabhuta stage of self-realization. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swamini Tinamane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paschachadeshtarne Om Agyana Timarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshura Unmilitam Jaina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Vishtang Shapitang Jaina Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandayahang Shri Guru Shri Tapada Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishavangscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tang Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitangscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namosate Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvya Evacha Patitanang Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So let's go back to the synonyms. Some very interesting words there. This is description of Swayambhuva's Manu's life. So, Saha, Swayambhuva Manu, Evam, the Swa-antaram, his own period. So everybody has their own period. There was a popular song, actually it's based on a biblical phrase, to everything turn, turn, there is a season, turn, turn, and a time for every action under heaven. So this is from the Bible. It was popularized into a folk song. And we would agree with those statements. To everything, there is a season. Every one of us has our swa-antaram, our own period that we are passing through right now. We were not conscious at the time of its beginning, at least not fully conscious. In other words, when we came out of the womb of the mother, we were not fully conscious of our surroundings. We were not self-conscious fully. At that stage, one quickly becomes just attached to eating. I'm hungry, feed me. I'm hungry, feed me. But sometimes that's not the problem. Prabhupada would say, the child sometimes is crying and somebody foolishly thinks that the child wants something to eat, but actually if some bug is biting him, but he can't express that. So he cries. And the parents are wondering, what's going on? I just fed you, you're hungry again? You know, like they're not. Or it's colicky or something is wrong. So in that stage of our swa-antaram, of our own period, we're not fully conscious. We can't express ourselves. What I want, what I need. So that stage is called anamoya. Then the next stage, pranamoya. One becomes conscious of one's existence and one wants to continue existing. So fear starts to set in. Everything appears to be dangerous, so I'm a little bit fearful because I want to continue existing. So again, swa-antaram, we all have our period that had a beginning in a more or less unconscious state, and the end, known as death, is another transformation, but that is all going on the bodily platform. As we become more and more conscious, we become conscious of the, first of all, 5 gross material elements, earth, water, fire, ether, and then as we become a little more conscious, we become conscious of the subtle material elements, mind, intelligence, and ego. So here it's mentioned about the 3 destinations. Prabhupada said it can refer to the 3 stages of consciousness. The awakened stage, the sleeping stage, and the completely unconscious stage. The example of the 3rd stage is given like when you get a general anesthetic. I've undergone an operation where I had to be knocked out completely. so I can relate to that. You're still alive, the body's there, you're still alive, but you have absolutely no consciousness of your body, or anything else for that matter. Because that anesthetic knocks you out completely, you're just completely unconscious. So the stage after the winding up of the material, Nirodha Shayana Shayanam, Atmanaksa Shaktibi, Muktir Hitvaneta Rupam, Swarupena Vivasati. That verse is there in the second canto. Nirodha Shayana Shayanam, the winding up of this entire material creation will happen. And it happens periodically, just as spring is followed by summer, by fall, and winter, and then again spring. This is going on cyclically. So when it's wound up, everything and everyone that remains on the material platform is wound up into the body of Mahavishnu. So those living entities who don't qualify themselves to attain the topmost destination, the spiritual world, Paramgati, they get wound up along with all the material elements into the body of Mahavishnu. And I've said this several times, but I still remember clearly when I first heard this as a new devotee in 73, I was wondering, it's stated that the Supreme Lord is supremely pure, and anything that comes in contact with him becomes purified. So if the living entities who don't make it back to Godhead are wound up in the body of the Lord, why are they not purified? They're in contact with the Supreme Person, the Supreme Pure. Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitram, Paramam Bhavam, as Arjuna says in the Bhagavad Gita. The Supreme Pure. So why are we not purified? That is proof that Krishna does not interfere with our minute independence. If at the time of dissolution, you still have material aspirations, you want to be this, you want to be this, that, you want to go here, you want to go there, all right. So you stay in the body of Mahavishnu in this susupti state, complete unconsciousness, for billions of years. You know, we sleep, if we oversleep a little bit, we feel groggy. Instead of feeling refreshed, you feel actually groggy, isn't it? If you sleep more than you should. But imagine sleeping for billions of years. This is exactly what happens at the end of the cycle of creation and destruction. And that's why the devotees are so eager to deliver as many persons as possible while they're still in the conscious state. Because when you're in that susupti state, you can't be delivered. You have to wait for another creation, and then again, you're injected into the material energy to pick up where you left off. So if billions of years ago, you still wanted to be a rock star or a politician, or we just had Raghunath Prabhu here from Shelter fame. I was in New York when he joined. He had been a famous rock musician, and he joined ISKCON. So I always remember, his legal name is Ray Capo. And in New York, growing up in New York, you're very conscious of the mafia. And in the mafia, they have this phrase, capo di tutti capi. The head of all heads, the boss, in other words, the topmost boss. So this is our actual innermost desire when we're materially contaminated. Every one of us wants to be the topmost boss. We bow down, we pay our pranams to Subhas, but we want to be Suhas. We want to be the in-charge person. And if we make it to the in-charge person of New Dwarka, then we want to be in charge of Los Angeles, or all of ISKCON, or it never stops. One who has that desire to be the boss, it never stops. You become the boss of a country, you want to be the boss of all the countries around you, and then the whole planet. And then you start looking out, why not go to Mars, or like that. It never stops. So we have to be very careful to curb that. There's only one capo di tutti capi, and that's Krishna, the boss of all bosses. Ekala Ishvara Krishna ar sab britya. That statement is there in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Ekala, there's only one. Ishvara, controller. Krishna. So the position is eternally taken. We cannot become the topmost. Krishna is always the topmost. But what we can become is dear servant of the topmost. Very dear servant of the topmost. So Swayambhuva Manu, he's setting the example of how to exist on a very high level as a Manu. Very, very important position. Very, very wealthy, very, very powerful, but at the same time, one can remain fixed in devotion. So this is very important for us to emulate. Yes, it's okay. Whatever comes naturally by your karma, it's going to be different. For some, not just devotees, for everyone. For some living entities in the human form of life, they are never going to get very far materially. That's just their karma for this life. And for others, it seems like without trying, they become king of England just by taking birth in a particular family. But just see how nature works. He waited till his mother passed away. What was her age? Almost 100 years old. She was actually very favorable to ISKCON. But anyway, Queen Elizabeth, she's gone now. So he waited so long, till his 70s, to become king. And within a few months, he's got cancer. Death is knocking on the door. That's how Maya works. That's how the material energy works. Yesterday, Arcita Prabhu quoted that verse from the third canto coming up. Satam prasangam mama virya sangvido bhavanti rekar. Tadyoshan ashpavavargavartmani. That's a very, very important line. Prabhupada repeat many times. Appavargavartmani. That's the path that we're on. Everybody, when they're in a material condition state, they're on the path of pavarga. Papa baba ma. Hard work, working so hard till foam comes to the mouth. Then disappointment. One becomes disappointed because in spite of one's hard work, again, if it's not your karma to accumulate a lot, it won't happen no matter how hard you work. It's not by hard work what Prabhupada would say. Prabhupada would give the example. There are so many gentlemen, they sit down, they pick up the phone, they make a couple of transactions, and they make millions of dollars. And meanwhile, some other guy is working hard all day, he can barely put together 2 pieces of toast and a cup of tea. So it's not by your hard work. It's not simply by working hard. It's by your karma. That verse that I've repeated many times from the 10th canto. Eka prasuyate jantur, eka esha paliyate, ekonu bhungte sukritam, eka esha cha dushkritam. Everyone is born alone, dies alone, and alone has to enjoy herself with the reactions to their good and bad deeds. That is what's going on in the material world. That's all. And you can't change that. Not by your desire, not by your efforts. You can't change that. You're born alone, you're going to die alone, and alone you have to suffer or enjoy the reactions to whatever you've done in this life. Now, when one takes the Appavargavartmani, which means transcendental path, as is mentioned in today's purport, transcendental path, beyond the 3 destinations. And those 3 destinations, Prabhupada said, also means the mode that you die in. If you die in the mode of goodness, you get promoted in this material world. If you die in the mode of passion, you stay more or less in the middle situation, human-like situation. And if you die in the mode of ignorance, jaganya guna vritista, adogachanti tamasa, one goes down. One goes down, as Prabhupada said here in today's purport, to animal life, and even to lower hellish planets, as we know mentioned in the 5th canto. So Swayambhuva Manu is not on that path. He's on the Appavarga path of liberation. But it's also mentioned by Prabhupada that the devotees are not aspiring for liberation. And he quotes Bilva Mangala Thakur, Muktiranjali, that if I take to this path of devotional service, Mukti is standing, everybody knows this, Anjali Mudra. When you put the palms together like that. It's called Anjali Mudra. So when you take to the Appavarga path, then Mukti personified is standing with folded hands waiting to serve you. But the devotee is not concerned. Why? Because they're already tasting the highest pleasure. And it's that taste that we're looking for constantly. We want to experience pleasure, uninterrupted, because that's our birthright. Coming from the spiritual world, that's what we're used to. That's spiritual conditioning. Spiritual conditioning means always happy at every moment. Material conditioning means false happiness. It may seem that you're a little happy, but look at what you're trying to enjoy. Whenever we eat, we're supposed to recite the prayer, right? So Bhaktivinoda Thakur gave us to remind us, this body is a lump of ignorance. Anybody going to dispute that? It's a lump of ignorance. We can call it LOI for short. So if you go to somebody and tell them, hey, LOI, how you doing? What do you mean LOI? Lump of ignorance. They would get upset. But actually, if you're not self-realized, as is mentioned in today's verse, then you're thinking yourself to be a lump of ignorance. You're thinking yourself to be this body. And based on your bodily identification, you act accordingly. Somebody's thinking that they're a middle-aged white man. Somebody's thinking that they're a 20-year-old black female. Somebody's thinking that they're a dog. Woof, 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 don't come close, I'll bite you. This is all LOI, lump of ignorance consciousness. Basing our viewpoint, the way we interact with the world on this lump of ignorance. So that's where self-realization begins, by at least theoretically accepting, understanding that I'm not this lump of ignorance. And the senses are a network of paths leading to death. And this is why Krishna is giving us this prasadam. You're so kind, you've given us this prasadam just to help us conquer the tongue, which is the most difficult to control. Because if you can conquer the tongue, speak only Krishna Katha, Satam Prasangam, Mamavir Sangvino, and chant Hare Krishna, eat only prasadam, then we're well on the path, the upper Varga path. We just have to stick to it. Last night I was giving a class to devotees in Arcita Prabhu. Actually, it was the second part. They had asked me to give class on the 5th verse of the Nectar of Instruction last Friday, but it's such a long and interesting purport that we had to break it into 2 parts, and we carried on again last night. If you have not read that purport in some time, I suggest you do that as your homework today. That is such a powerful purport. Such a powerful purport. That verse, Krishneti yasya manasajareta, diksheti chak, pranatibis chabajantamisha, where Rupa Goswami is telling us how to relate to devotees on different stages. Krishneti yasya giritang manasajareta. For one who's chanting Hare Krishna, you must mentally honor them at least. Even if they're not behaving properly, as I mentioned last night, that conversation with Sanatana Goswami and Haridas Thakur, where Sanatana Goswami told Haridas Thakur, some devotees, they preach, but they don't behave very nicely. And some devotees behave very nicely, sweetly, but they don't want to preach. He said, you are exceptional because you do both. You're a preacher and you behave nicely. So both things have to be there. Not that we preach, but we're ruffians. No, if we're actually listening to what we're preaching, in other words, if we're actually following the instructions of the spiritual master. But it takes time. There was one famous letter one woman wrote to Prabhupada that I met a couple of your followers, disciples, and I didn't like the way they interacted with me. They were very, she complained. So Prabhupada wrote back and said, in essence, I'm sorry that they behave like that. But you have to understand that they're on a spiritual path, and it takes time to come to the perfectional stage. It takes time. So we have to give ourselves time and give each other time. Unfortunately, most of the time we are willing to give ourselves unlimited time, but we get very angry with somebody else if they do something that we don't like. Immediately, we want to burn them with our fiery gaze. No, Vaishnava mentality is just the opposite. We're always willing to get on our own case to improve and willing to give others time to improve. Doesn't mean that we accept any nonsense, but we try to guide in the right mood. Rishabdev said that in the 5th canto, that the king, the guru, and the father should give good instructions to the citizens, the disciples, and the offspring. And if the disciples, the citizen, and offspring don't follow so nicely, don't get angry, just keep giving good instruction. So that's the Vaishnava mentality. We don't get mad at people because of where they are. Because everybody's on different levels. Some people take birth and they come to ISKCON and it seems like immediately they take off like a rocket. That means they're carrying on from a previous lifetime. Because as we know, wherever you left off in the previous life, you're going to start at that point in the next life. I'm talking about the devotional ladder. Whereas some, it takes forever. Somebody comes, they're hanging around ISKCON for years and years and years, and they still go in the alleyway and smoke a cigarette and then come back to the arti. But then lo and behold, one day, You don't see them doing that anymore. And you ask them, well, what happened? And they explain that it dawned on me that this tongue, it's a true story, this tongue that I'm using to eat prasadam and chant Hare Krishna, I'm violating by smoking cigarettes, or drugs or whatever it is that's holding them back. So for some people it takes time, so we have to be patient. It takes time to get there. But with ourselves, we can be tough. We can be tough, should be tough. Not always full of excuses why I didn't do that or I can't do this and why I'm not reading, why I'm not going on Harinam, why I'm not, always so many excuses that we give ourselves. And other people were ready to jump on them. So that's not the mood. So Swayambhuva Manu was not such a devotee. He set the right example by his lifestyle. Even though he was an emperor, ruler, he set the right example of how a devotee should behave. He set the right example in raising his offspring, his daughter. He loved her, but not on the bodily platform, not because she's my daughter. This loving the offspring because they're mine, that's also more Maya. The animals also think like that. Like right now they have this invasive species, well, the topmost invasive species in Florida, the Burmese python. The females can grow to over 20 feet long. And when they're gravid, when they're pregnant, they can give birth to 100 eggs. And they're attached to the eggs. It's not even like they're moving snakes. They don't give live birth. They give birth to eggs. And they're attached to those eggs. And those who go out and try to track down these pythons, when they come across a nest like that, she will kill you if you try to take her eggs. So protective, just of eggs, not even of living, moving snakes. So the animals also are very protective, very caring. Even the vicious ones like snakes and lions. You try to take a lioness's cub from her, she'll rip you apart. But it's all on the bodily platform because it's my cub. See? My baby snakes, my cub, my. That's the motivation. But the devotee takes care of their offspring because they're Krishna's. Prabhupada said these are not ordinary children, they're Vaikuntha children. Take care of them in that mentality and guide them as best as possible to come to Krishna. And as Rishabdev says, if they don't take immediately guidance, don't stop. Just keep giving the guidance in the right mood. And let Chaitya Guru, Krishna, in the heart, do his thing. And that's what he's there for. And he will bring everybody along at just the right pace for that particular living entity. Again, for some it means, they take off like rockets. Just like, is he here? I don't want to embarrass him. Like our Dhruv, Narayani's grandson. Born and raised right here in Udvarka. And he was such a Jagannath Bhakta, because of him, the children's Ratha Yatra was initiated. So some people take that kind of birth. They're born in a devotee community and they stick to the path from birth. And others are born in the devotee community, but by their own free will they leave. And others don't even get the chance in the human form of life to say, Jai Prabhupada. Just imagine what kind of birth that is. You're born on this earth planet where Prabhupada has spread the Krishna consciousness movement all over, and you never once in your life say Jai Prabhupada. So this is our mission. Prabhupada has left us that mission, to go out and give everybody the opportunity to say Jai Prabhupada or Gauranga. That story I've told before many times also, but the new devotees here may not have heard that back in the 80s, this is after Prabhupada had left, it was very difficult to preach in Scotland. The government, public at large, were not so favorable. So one devotee came up with the idea to just do Gauranga graffiti. So they went around the city writing Gauranga all over on the walls. So people were wondering, who is this? What is this Gauranga? What does it mean? So everybody was chanting Gauranga, Gauranga, Gauranga. And there was a buzz all over. What is this Gauranga, Gauranga, Gauranga? So finally, after many years of frustration, the police traced it to the Hare Krishnas. But by then it was too late. Everybody was chanting Gauranga ecstatically. Have you seen this Gauranga, 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 Gauranga? So this is our mission, either directly or indirectly, get everybody to chant Gauranga. So, all right, I've been promising for weeks to show. I'm just going to show a few pictures before we run out of time here. This is something I just posted on my Facebook page. There's a temple. How many of you have been to the Mayapur Jagannath Mandir? Yeah, yes. How many have been there? So on that same compound, there's a small temple. Well, they're both small, but the main temple is Jagannath Baldev Subhadra. And then there's a smaller temple on the same compound. It's Gauranga Simantini. So it's a deity of Lord Chaitanya and a deity of Parvati in this mood where she wants the mercy of Lord Gauranga. You know the story of how Lord Shiva was chanting the name of Gora, 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 and his wife said, what is this Gora? Please enlighten me. Like that. So then she also got that mood. So it's the latest thing that I posted. I'm just going to show a few of those pictures for those who haven't been there. Yeah. All right, let's see if I can find this quickly. Okay. All right, so that's the temple. It's a very small temple. And as you can see, everywhere around our ISKCON world, people come to the temple to take selfies. You shouldn't do this. The deity is actually behind them. So they have their backs turned to the deity, taking selfies with the deity. We're not supposed to do that. But those are the deities. Gauranga and Mother Parvati in this mood of Simantini. Because Simanta means the part in a woman's hair where they keep the kumkum. And so she took the dust from his feet and put it on her hand. Beautiful deity. Lotus feet of Gauranga. Also very beautiful deity of Parvati. Now, on the temple walls is a story of how this meeting took place, of Lord Shiva meditating on Lord Gauranga and Parvati asking for instructions. So on both sides of the temple there's the story written. I had taken some shots of zooming in on the text, but I'll post those later. But anyway, this is the point, is that Lord Gauranga has come to give this opportunity to everyone. Arcita Prabhu was saying how Jiva Goswami mentioned that it's because of piety in previous life that one gets to associate with devotees. You get the satsanga. But Lord Gauranga doesn't care what you were in your previous life. As he showed, he gave his mercy even to a dog. He gave his mercy to trees. So this is the specific quality of Lord Chaitanya that we have to take advantage of. His mercy extends to everyone. And in that mood, the devotees following his more Senapati Bhakta, Srila Prabhupada, we go out in the public and give the opportunity to everyone. Now, if they react badly, of course we don't want to immediately associate with them, but we give them the opportunity anyway. Some prasadam, if they hear the holy name, their material life will end and they will take to the spiritual path eventually. That example I've given many times, it was a true story. This devotee actually wrote how he came to Krishna, was published in the Back to Godhead, that he was a punk rocker from Ireland. He was in London and he saw the devotees chanting on the street and he was so full of anger, he went up to them and kicked one of the devotees. No provocation, just out of anger. But gradually, over time, from having contact with the Krishna conscious movement, he became a devotee. So that's the power of Lord Chaitanya's mercy. We like to say don't judge, but no, we are always judging, because judging is natural. As long as you're alive and conscious, you're going to be judging in every situation. But being a devotee means being trained how to judge properly. And proper judgment is everybody in this material world needs Lord Gauranga's mercy, so don't discriminate, just give it to them. And then how they react, then you react accordingly. If they're envious and angry and want to attack you, then you take appropriate defensive measures. If they're innocent and willing to hear, then you give them more and more and more. But anything that they get, even just once hearing Krishna's name, that means their material life is gradually going to come to an end. So you've done your job. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.